Anyway, as you all probably all know, the iPhone 10 has been out for months now. So in this video, I'm not going to be diving really deep into the tech specs, as I'm sure you know about them, but instead, I'm going to be talking about my user experience. I'm well acclimated with animojis, as you can probably tell, but outside of that, I do kind of want to just have more like a conversation with you all versus a presentation. So design-wise, I really love the design of this phone. It's like the perfect size for one-handed use, so I can navigate my thumb from left to right, top to bottom pretty well. I will say getting to the top left and right corner is a little bit harder. I do have to shift it, but outside of that, I'm content with the size of this. I've always been a little apprehensive to go to a device that's smaller than my Plus, but in having one that actually had more screen real estate, but smaller, really appealed to me. So when you stack this up against like the iPhone 7 here, they're basically the same height-wise, except where you have the bezels on the iPhone 7, you have a screen on the iPhone 10. I've always gone for the Plus model simply because you got more screen real estate. So it's nice to kind of see like a merge of the two, a hybrid baby of the Plus and the non-Plus models is kind of how I see it. I will say that it is a bit slippery because it does have that glass back, which thankfully now allows wireless charging. But with that, you do have a much more slipperier phone. Slipperier word? Slipperier? More slippery phone. So what I've noticed with this, especially when I have something on like sweatpants, this is not gonna stay in my pocket when I sit down. It's gonna slide out. It's gonna be under the chair in my car. It's gonna be in the couch cushion. So that's just something to be mindful of. But I have been rocking a case on it for the most part lately, especially this one by Spigen because it has the built-in stand. If you're curious about my iPhone 10 cases that I like and I've been using, I'm gonna have a video link down below that has all that information, but it is very slippery. Now with this new design, it all centers around this beautiful screen. Oh my God, it's like bezel free, first time on an iPhone, so everybody's hyped. But you do have the notch at the top, which I like to dub as the Jay Leno chin. But nonetheless, visibility wise, when you're looking at content, I will say that it's not something that I notice as much as I thought I would. So when it comes to viewing videos up here, you basically have two modes. You have zoom to fill and cropped. And I normally find myself in cropped mode, just one, because by default it does this. And it actually takes on, so to speak, the look of what you would get if you're looking at a video on an iPhone 8 or something of that nature. But if you notice my head, when I go to zoom to fill, you see how much it actually zooms to fill? Like, I personally don't like that. I'd rather have this cropped version and see all of the video than lose that much of a video. And it's really leaning on basically the format in which the video was shot. However, if you're watching a video that's formatted to work with this particular aspect ratio, such as this one here in iTunes, if I were to zoom to fill, you'll notice that it didn't cut off anything. Now, this is when you might notice the notch, and it's with a larger screen like this that, I don't know, it makes watching videos a little bit more enjoyable. I think it's that screen coupled in with the new speakers on this, as they are noticeably better. You know how sometimes phone manufacturers will be like, yeah, our phone speakers are 30 or 40% better, and you may or may not notice a difference. With the iPhone 10, you definitely notice a difference. As far as button placement, everything is pretty much still the same there. You got your volume buttons on the left, power button on the right, charging port, speakers on the bottom and such. Still no headphone jack. However, the one thing that is a little bit different is the length of the power button, as it's a little bit longer this go round, which I don't know if it has anything to do with me taking all these accidental screenshots, because I don't know if that's just me, any other iPhone 10 users out there. If you could drop down in the comment section if you find yourself with accidental screenshots a lot as well. But I mean, outside of that, yeah, buttons are pretty much the same. Now, something else that I do also like with the design choice here is that you can get a silver phone or a black phone and basically still have the black bezeled front, as the bezels are so thin that you can get really either color choice and be fine with a black front. Because I think a lot of people tend to like the kind of black bezels around their screen. And sometimes when you get something like a silver phone, you tend to get like white bezels and such, but you don't have to worry about that this go round, as the front of the devices pretty much look the same. Now, there were a lot of changes to the iPhone 10 usage-wise, and more so gesture-wise, that pretty much has never been introduced to an iPhone in this magnitude that I've seen. And I will say that I adopted to a lot of them pretty easily. So you'll do things now like swipe down from the top right to grab your control center. You can go down from the top left to pull up your notification center. A swipe up from the bottom is going to pull up your multitask switcher, and then a long press on an app will actually allow you to dismiss it. Most of those changes are linked to the phone not having a home button, and I'm cool with that. But I will say with the multitask switcher, I stated this in my 48-hour review roundup, that it didn't seem as natural to close out the apps in the multitask switcher in the way that you have to now, and I still feel the same way. Like, it's still something that I have to remember, that I have to long press it, because even months down the road, I'm still finding myself wanting to do the way that I'm more accustomed to prior to these changes. And the same thing for Control Center. I still, to this day, would rather be able to pull it up from the bottom versus having to go to the top of the page to access my Control Center. Even though I wish some things were a little bit different in terms of the gestures, I still found that I adopted to these changes pretty well, because if I go to like an iPhone 8 or really anything that's not an iPhone 10, I naturally want to do the gestures that I do on my iPhone 10 on those devices. So yeah, there might be a learning curve, but you'll adapt to the point that you'll pretty much wonder how you ever used your phone before. Now, if you were to ask me what do I prefer, Face ID or Touch ID, that's a really good question. I think I kind of like Face ID a little bit more. The only time I really don't like Face ID really is in the morning. Like, for whatever reason, my phone doesn't know me anymore in the morning. I don't know why, and I will even go as far as lifting my face out of that pillow for it to scan it, and it still will shake and tell me, type in my passcode. So that's the main time I really don't like Face ID. Another time where I do wish I had Touch ID is when my phone is on the table, as you do have to kind of lean forward a little bit for it to be able to properly scan your face. But outside of those instances there, Face ID is lit. I like it. Now, something else that I feel is kind of lit is this video. Maybe it's just me, but if you agree, be sure to hit that like button down below. Make sure you're subscribed, and also make sure that notification bell is on so that you can be with Team TMO Notification Squad down in that comment section. We'll be doing shout outs and videos soon, so definitely be one of the first on it if you can. So many people questioned Face ID, they clowned it, and when it was finally in the hands of consumers, I think it fared over similar to how we received Touch ID. Not perfect, but it's not bad either. I love how fast it scans my face for auto-filling passwords, and it's also pretty nice when you're downloading apps, as it's basically scanning your face faster than you can think of what you need to be doing in terms of typing in your password or wanting to hit your home button. Now, something about the iPhone 10 that I noticed in the beginning and that I sadly still notice now is that it's very glitchy. I've never had an iPhone that was as glitchy as this one, and that says a lot because I've never paid as much for an iPhone as I have for this one. So to have it, having a lot of hiccups even today, it can be frustrating. I've had my phone freeze up. I've had all these random things happen, and I'm just hoping as the software updates continue to roll out that I start to see less and less. It probably sounds like I need a Genius Bar appointment, but maybe I do. So typically when these issues do happen though, I'll perform a hard reset and it generally fixes it. But I will say, in saying that, that threw me for a loop in terms of how to even do a hard reset on this phone. We're accustomed to holding down the power button and the volume button, but now that actually activates an emergency siren. So instead of your phone resetting, it's gonna yell at you, it feels, but you actually do a hard reset by hitting the volume up, volume down, and then long holding the power button. So it seems a bit involved, and I kind of wonder why they changed it and made it so that your phone does this piercing noise and calls emergency services when you hold down what you were once accustomed to holding down. And I've actually even accidentally not released it fast enough or turned it off fast enough, and it actually dialed 911. So it's really interesting that they changed it to be those buttons instead, of all things, However, with a smaller phone like this and button placement being the way it is, I'm able to take a one-handed screenshot pretty comfortably, which is nice. Another big highlight of the iPhone 10 is Animojis. People were excited about this, myself included, but I don't use it as much as I thought I would. It's still pretty cool to have have, and it's like the silent certified way to let someone else know that you have an iPhone 10. I find it really nice though because it accurately tracks my face, my eyes, my brows, my mouth, everything. And it does an awesome job of mapping out my gestures and matching them on my character, which, by the way, I think the monkey is my favorite. I know they recently dropped some new ones and I'm kind of feeling that dragon a little bit too, but let me know down below in the comment section which Animoji is your favorite. But something that I've really been enjoying using and actually using quite frequently is the option to wirelessly charge. So it's really convenient to be able to have these wireless chargers about the house and even in my car to just like place my phone on without having to connect any cords. Now the battery on this isn't bad at all and it gets me through the entire day. I can use my phone pretty heavily and the battery has allowed me to do all of this, leaving me with maybe about 20% by the end of the day. Now moving on to the camera, it definitely hits the mark here. The rear camera and even the front facing camera can grab some really good images. Even on the sunniest of days, I'm able to grab a pretty pleasing picture where colors are bright and accurate, they're not overly saturated, details are sharp, and the clouds of the sky look natural and vibrant. Rarely do I have to take a picture over because the camera has failed. If anything, I tend to take a picture over because I probably framed it improperly, but that's about it. And portrait mode, it's a beast, really rivals the DSLR and has gotten better than what it used to be. Outside of that though, I found that the camera here shined in low light conditions and even in well-lit scenarios. I never really noticed it struggling to grab anything outside of a selfie portrait, where it just seemed to have a difficult time determining the edges of the photo as it tends to blur the edges into the background a bit too much. Now people might ask, is the camera as nice as they say, or is the phone hard to use without having a home button? Is it hard to convert over? But before they ask any of that, they tend to ask, is it worth the money? If you're gonna miss a meal or a bill, no, it's not on that level for you to start, sacrificing the things that you need, because you could get something like the iPhone 8, which is just as good of a phone. You just have a little bit more with the iPhone 10. But if you have the means to go about getting this phone, I definitely say go ahead and do so, if you haven't already by now. And with that price tag, you're gonna get some exclusive features that you're not gonna find on other phones, such as the new bezel-free design, Face ID, and emojis, and the best camera that money can buy right now on an iPhone. Because all of those things are exclusive to the iPhone 10. I debated using the iPhone 8 as my primary device, but like with anything that you're comparing, there's always something between the two items that kind of just wins you over. And in this case, it was the screen and the size of the phone in hand for the iPhone 10 that made me choose that over the iPhone 8. So that was the winning factor for me. And I hope with this review, it kind of helped you gain some insight on what might be or might not be the winning factor for you in terms of if you should get the iPhone 10 or not. Despite some of the hangups I've had with it, I still enjoy it, and my obsession with tech is only reignited every time in which I look at this display, so I'm pleased. But I'm curious, what feature would you love to see on the next iPhone? Drop it down below in the comment section, and yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. As always, thanks for taking the time out to let me tech you out.